All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the March 19th meeting of the Merced County Associations of Government. And I will, is there anybody that would like to do an invocation? Director Pereira, would you like to lead us in an invocation? Yes. We're just at that point in the meeting. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. If you all rise. I called it in order first.
Thank you. I want to explain something, just in case people are wondering why I come down here to do the invocation, and because it's my personal invocation, not a dais invocation, so if anybody was wondering. Anyways, Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day, this wonderful season, this wonderful county, this wonderful community that we live in. Lord, I pray that you give us guidance to make good decisions today, that we might affect our environment and our communities in a positive way. I thank you for the cordialness in which all of us treat each other. You watch videos sometimes and you see craziness, and I'm just so thankful that I live in a county that doesn't have so much craziness. So anyways, I thank you for this. Pray for your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Director Ford, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Pereira and Director Ford. Joy, can we have roll call, please?
Director Kale?
Here.
Director Reed?
Present.
Director Ford?
Here.
Director Samra?
Here.
Director Amabil?
Here.
Director Serrato? Director Pacheco?
Here.
Director Pedroso?
Here.
Director McDaniel?
Present.
Director Pereira?
Present.
Chair Silvera?
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like we have a quorum, so we'll move on to item number 3. This is public comment. Public comment is available in advance of or during the meeting. See instructions for public comment on page 2 of the agenda packet. I would invite any members of the public up to address this board. We don't have anybody online either. All right, we will move along from public comment period and move on to item number 4, reports and presentations. And we have the Caltrans report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good to see all of you today. Caleb Brock, Caltrans District 10, Deputy District Director for Planning, Local Assistance, and Environmental Support. I brought with me today Alan Lau, who is our Office Chief for Asset Management. So he'll be going over our quarterly Caltrans projects. So I'll get through my stuff and field any questions or comments, and then I'll turn it over to him for a specific project related presentation. So a couple of things here. So last month, Caltrans announced it awarded $25 million to 90 projects that will improve lives and communities by supporting litter and graffiti removal efforts across California. We had 3 projects within District 6 that were awarded, one for Calaveras County, one for the City of Stockton, and one for the City of Modesto. 2 grant funding opportunities. First one is the California State Transportation Agency, CalSTA, released a call for applications for Cycle 8 of the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which is to help modernize California's intercity, commuter, and urban rail and bus systems to significantly reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and vehicle miles traveled. There's $900 million available for that. Applications are due May 14th. And last Cycle 7, San Joaquin Regional Rail and San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority was awarded $70 million for 4 projects. So hopefully we can continue that trend of keeping more money in the North Valley for this next cycle. The other one is from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Their call for applications for fisheries restoration grant program to enhance and protect salmon and steelhead habitats. That is $16 million available. Applications are due April 16th. A couple of Merced County announcements. So westbound State Route 152, there's currently a traffic advisory out the right lane pavement resurfacing near San Luis Reservoir in Merced County. That's going to be going March 23rd through March 26th, primarily 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then also Interstate 5, there's a full closure of the John C. Eureka rest area on southbound I-5 beginning Monday, April 4th through May 1st. So there is an alternative location for those that can use the Kalinga Avenel rest area, which is at the Fresno Kings County line. A couple of quick encampment updates. So we posted encampments this morning on the right-of-way in Merced County at 14 locations on State Route 99, including Winton Parkway, Atwater Boulevard, G Street, 16th Street, and Childs Avenue. And those will be removed March 23rd and 24th. The encampments under the overpass at State Route 99 and Atwater Boulevard are in the UP right-of-way. And so we're going to continue to work and do the outreach with law enforcement and coordination. But for overall, things are looking pretty good on those. And then lastly, a couple follow-up items. I know there was a issue with the microphone last month, and some of the supervisors weren't here. So as you may recall, in January, the folks gave the presentation about Dos Palos, about the three areas. And as I mentioned last month, those are on our radar now. Caltrans planning met with the county and MCAG to discuss mobility improvements on the Y, which is Azusa and 33. So we're going to be taking a holistic approach and partnering to come up with some mobility solutions for that intersection. And then the other one, which the community indicated their number one priority was the Christian Avenue. So I met with our traffic operations team at the district, and so they're going to be doing their thing to see if what kind of what the issues are and what kind of solutions and enhancements we could make on that intersection as well. In addition, I've spoke and corresponded with Nick Jensen, who's at the California Rural League Assistance Team. He provided me the electronic copies of the reports that were presented, and I gave those to the traffic operations team so they have more information and they're not starting from square one. And then, yeah, so I'll turn it over to Alan, but I'll pause and see if there's any questions or items the board has for me before I turn it over to Alan, excuse me.
Is there anybody on the, Director Ford has a question?
Do you have an update on the projects in Gustine on 33 and 140, both sides of town? I see they're marking stuff, checking stuff, but I don't know what the projects are going to look like.
You have that one on your list?
How about we wait for you to come up there and he'll ask you that question then so that you're on microphone. We'll get right back to you, Director Ford. Any other questions or comments? I will tell you, Caleb, that as a result of working with that group, the county put in a stop sign at Christian and Eli Avenue, which isn't on the state highway, but I went to my first ribbon cutting for a stop sign last Friday. So that's how proud the community was to be able to get that. So I will pass along to that group that you guys are moving that process forward and at least looking into some potential options there. So thank you for that. All right, now I guess Alan's going to come up.
Yeah,
I don't see any
Alan
other.
Lyles, the Office Chief for Asset Management in District 10.
Right, thank you. Alan, welcome up.
All right, good afternoon. So in the town of Gustine, I know there are two projects going on. I think the one at 33 and is it Sperry Road? Or no, 33 and 140. There's one where we're working at the intersection currently to improve the truck turning radius. And I think coming out of the wet season, there was something called Lake Gustine on one of the corners. And so we're well aware of that. We're working to address those flooding issues on that corner and somehow tying that drainage system to the northeast corner. That should be underway right now. We're working with the contractors to secure an estimate for that extra work. And there was another project on the southern end. I'm not aware of that, but I can take a note and provide updates for that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I see they started cutting down one row of almond trees on the south side of Sullivan Road or Highway 140, so I was wondering if they're starting a project now or if, and what the project is exactly.
Okay. So I'll take a note of that, and we'll report back at the next meeting.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with our project updates. We have over 30 slides, but I promised Caleb to make this painless. So for our current portfolio, Caltrans has about $1.7 billion worth of active projects in various stages through the project initiation phase through construction in Merced County. Our upcoming 2026 shop is going to be, we're going to be programming quite a bit of projects in June. We're proposing $1.17 billion in projects focused on safety, preservation, operations, and climate resilience. For this target, for this upcoming shop, our target for pavement is about 577 lane miles. Our biggest project proposed for the 2026 shop is to rehabilitate the pavement on State Route 152 from the Merced Santa Clara County line to Badger Flat Road. This is about $105 million. Next slide. So instead of going through all of those projects, we picked 10 that we thought would be interesting to go over. 3 of those projects are pavement rehabilitation projects. We refer to them as anchor projects, and that just means that pavement is the primary objective, and it anchors other assets that go along with that projects, you know, such as guardrail, drainage, bridges. Those are typical examples. We have 4 safety projects to go over, 1 complete streets project, it's pretty big, and 1 mobility improvement project. Here's a map showing those 8 projects that are in the project development phase. We'll see a lot of projects up in Hillmar, Stevenson. There's a few in Merced, and then at the 152, 165 intersection. Next slide, please. 2 projects that we're going over are currently in construction. One is in Hillmar and one is in Planada. So first project is 0V690. This project's located on State Route 59 near El Nido from junction of State Route 152 to Riley Road. The scope of work is pavement, overlay, guardrail. We're going to be resurfacing over 3 bridges, Owens, Miles, and Deadman's Creek Bridge. One of the major items was to replace Mariposa Creek Bridge. We're raising that bridge up about 8 feet for some of the past flooding issues. We're also upgrading some drainage systems throughout the project limits, and we included a crosswalk and landing pads in El Nido. I believe there were some flooding issues there as well, so we'll be replacing one of the dry wells and installing 2 new dry wells there as well. Next slide. So purpose and need, the main purpose of this project is pavement and also the flooding near Mariposa Creek Bridge. Total project cost is $31 million. Next slide. And we're currently ready for advertisement. We're going to be anticipating construction spring of 2027. This project is estimated to be about 225 working days. So one dry season is about 120 working days. So we'll estimate about 2 years for this. We anticipate the project to be completed in winter of 2028. And the construction contract is anticipated to be about $23 million. This next one is also an anchor project. Project is in 2 locations, located in the city of Merced on State Route 59. The first location begins north of Hoffman Avenue and ends at 14th Street. And the second location starts at 99 on V Street and ends west of Ashby Road. The purpose of this project was to replace areas of deterioration in the pavement and also upgrade 7 signals. We also do have some culvert replacement and curb ramps planned for this project. The total project cost is about $18 million. We're currently about ready to advertise this project as well. So most of the projects we'll be discussing today are going to start in spring of 2027. This project is about 85 working days. So we anticipate it to be completed spring of 2028. Optimistically, probably the winter of 2027. But typically, if there's items of work remaining, we'll go into winter suspension. The estimated construction capital is about $11 million. This project is a safety project at the intersection of State Route 59 and Girard Avenue. This is a single lane roundabout, and our main collision pattern here are broadsides. Next slide. So here currently is a two-way stop intersection, and we had a collision pattern of broadside collisions. The total project cost is about $13 million. And next slide. And we are waiting to advertise this project as well. We anticipate awarding the contract in the fall of this year, and construction should begin spring of 2027. Roundabouts typically 120 working days, and we anticipate this one to be completed fall of 2027. This next project is also a safety project. It's located at State Route 165 and Wilmot Road in the city of Los Banos. It's proposing a single lane roundabout, and we're addressing broadside collisions here as well. The total project cost is $13 million. And this project is currently in the environmental project approval and environmental document phase. We are working to get this project to construction spring or summer of 2028. We're anticipating 120 working days as well, and the project should be completed by fall of 2029. This is the Los Banos 152 Anchor project. This is about 0.3 miles west of Badger Flat Road to 0.2 miles east of San Luis Street. This project, the purpose is the pavement. Although we are addressing pavement, we also include several complete street elements to the project. We have proposed new sidewalks, replacing the curb ramps, driveways. And with this project, we are currently having some challenges securing our temporary construction easements with property owners. There seems to be consensus for Caltrans to provide over our offer. And we're encountering a lot of counter offers where there are non-negotiables put into the contract, and we're getting into a situation where it would be considered a gift of state funds. So Caltrans has 31 parcels to acquire. We're already dropping 4, which means, there won't be sidewalk along that stretch, and we're looking to drop an additional 12 parcels. We're not successful with these property owners. There's going to be a large stretch of sidewalk where we planned to construct new sidewalk that will be removed from the project. We're planning to schedule a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce this month. Hopefully that can get us steered in the right direction, but those are some of our challenges, and this may end up being just primarily a pavement project. This project's scheduled to go to construction spring of 2027. It's projected to be 140 working days. That's about, one and a half construction seasons. So project completion is anticipated to be in spring of 2028. This one is a safety project in Planada. This is located at State Route 140 and Plainsburg Road. This proposes a single lane roundabout, and it's currently estimated to be 200 working days, and we're anticipated to be done with construction spring of 2027. This is an anchor project that is along 165. This is a future project where we propose to pave the roadway. This project includes replacing main canal bridge. We also have curb ramps and sidewalks with buffered bike lanes proposed. And we also have guardrail to be proposed here. It's a fairly large project. It's $40 million total project cost. And it's currently in the project approval and environmental document phase. We estimate this project to go to construction in the fall of 2029. It's estimated to be 400 working days. That is probably a 3-season project. And the project should be done in the winter of 2032, possibly spring of 2033. And this construction contract is for probably approximately $26 million. This project is a safety project located at State Route 165 and Gear Avenue. We're proposing traffic signals to address the broadside collisions. And part of that will be repaving the roadway and reconstructing 12 driveways. Total project cost is $8.7 million. We're currently in construction. We're estimating about 65 working days. Construction started this month, and we anticipate it to be completed by the fall of this year. This is our Hillmar Complete Street project. It is a big project. We're going to be transforming that community. This project proposes to construct buffered bike lanes, curb ramps, driveways, sidewalks. We're proposing 6 new crosswalks. And also we'll be improving the drainage through town. There is a retention basin proposed at the north end of town between the Hillmar Cheese headquarters and the north of town. There's a small parcel on the west side. We're proposing a fairly large basin that will be gated off. Typically, if we have more than 3 feet of standing water, we'll have fencing around it. This project is proposed to be 200 working days. It still weighs out. I think we're proposing begin construction spring of 2029, and the project should be completed summer of 2030, possibly fall 2030. And I believe this is our last project, which is a mobility improvement project. It's not safety, but we are proposing a single lane roundabout at State Route 140 and 165. This mainly is to improve the delays that are happening at this intersection. So this project is about $14 million. And it's ready for advertisement. We anticipate having this project go to construction spring of 2027. And with a working days schedule of 140 working days, we anticipate it to be done winter of 2028. And I believe that concludes our presentation. I can take questions.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Any questions? Director Hammondville.
So, if you need any help with the properties on 152, I'm willing to help you. And I know the gifting of funds by the state. But I'll give you an example where I'm at. So it's affecting my property. It's about 200 feet by, I think you're taking 4 feet by 200 feet. So the value of that property, I was offered $450 for it. So that's what it's probably worth if you take your comps and stuff, but I'm losing 8 or 9 parking spaces. And in the restaurant world, a parking space is worth around $15,000 to $18,000 a year in sales. So that's the part you can't just look at comps and see what I'm losing. So, and I'm still willing to do it because I want a sidewalk in front of my restaurant. I'm still willing to do it. But many of the property owners have now been contacted by Nussbaum lawyers, And I think that's where people are running into, they're promising them, you know, they can get you a lot more money and stuff like that. They contacted me and I've never called them back 'cause I know how they play the game. But anything I can do personally, let me help you. But that's the push and shove of property value versus just square foot value by comps that are sold in the area. I'm still willing to do it, but I want to tell you where we're coming from.
Thank you, Director
Uh-huh.
Supervisor. I think that is a good insight. We were suspicious that, you know, there was something happening where property owners were promised to get more compensation compared to the first offer. That's good that we have a little bit of confirmation that that's going on. I will bring back to the team to look at the parking lots. I think that's something that we should look at, if not already, and you know, make sure that we're aware when we take that into consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Well, Alan, thank you for that update. It's really interesting to me, though. I want to point out, like at the intersection of 140 and 165, it hasn't been that long ago that Caltrans spent quite a bit of money cementing that intersection. It's because you have a lot of truck traffic that goes through there, and then now we're going to tear that up and go put a roundabout. Kind of wasn't really great planning. And the other thing that I would suggest to you is those intersections, especially that one at 140 and 165, as you talk about your construction season, I think you need to be more realistic, because during tomato season, that is a very, very busy intersection. Very busy. There's a lot of traffic that comes from the south and goes up in Stanislaus County to some of the processing plants up there. I know that that's a real concern for those folks. If you want any insight into that, I would put you in contact with a gentleman named Nick Carlucci, who owns a trucking business that supplies, he hauls tomatoes into tomato processing plants, and can tell you to the minute what it costs that a truck sits there waiting in a line to be able to go. And so I would hope that you guys, you know, as ag being our #1 industry in this state, that we would take those things into consideration. Director Pereira. And really quickly, let the record reflect that Director Serrato was here at 3:25. Yeah.
Magic fingers. Just to kind of finish what I think, or what I thought Supervisor Silver, where else he was going to go. But about 5 years ago, Caltrans did an overlay through the community of Hillmar, and they kind of put down just about an inch. And so I had shared, and one of the community members shared with Caltrans that you were going to do this in July and August when the grape and tomato trucks are rolling through, and that they leak, and that, you know, that it's going to cause this overlay you're putting on to not stick. That certainly happened. If you drive through Hillmar, you can see the right lane of the northbound traffic, or the right tire track, you know, because there's a dip. It's the asphalts, or whatever the layer was they put down, is peeling up. So that's going to happen at that intersection as well. So it kind of bodes well for you guys and for the ag industry to stay out of the season when those trucks are going through there. So if that's possible.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. And then it seemed like I had one other point on, Hillmar, between Hillmar and Stevenson on 165 is the Merced River Bridge, and that is a danger zone. What happens is there's a lot of farm equipment that can't fit in one lane. And so basically what farmers are doing are crossing the bridge with a pickup, stopping traffic. Then the heavy equipment comes across the bridge. Then when it gets to the other side, then the pickup moves out of the way. And it's really a dangerous situation. And as more and more traffic, 50 years ago wasn't a big deal. 25 years ago started to become a big deal. Today it's very, very unsafe. And so I've been kind of advocating over the last 7 or 8 years that bridge needs to be replaced.
That's a very narrow bridge.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar with the area then? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, good.
I realigned West Side Boulevard just right there, just south of the bridge.
Right.
So that's, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Perfect.
I'll take note of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Alan, if I could just add to that and to Caleb, I think it was your predecessors, but that bridge has been something that Elizabeth and I have talked to the district about too. And from my understanding, we have been told that because it's structurally sound, and it meets guidelines, that it's fine, but it's a safety issue. So I just want to tell you that there's a history of us talking to the district about that bridge. We brought it up a handful of times, and I think it's in good shape. So it's like let's wait till it starts to fall apart, and instead it's just the sheer nature of how it's constructed is a safety issue with the truck traffic we have. So.
Just a quick little fun note about that bridge. That was our thing when we were kids, when we went over, is to see if you could hold your breath from one side to the other. Yeah. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with, Alan, is just to put on your radar at Highway 165 and Henry Miller Road. That used to be a two-way stop. You only stopped on Henry Miller. Years ago, they made that into a four-way stop. Again, with that same traffic, it becomes, it's quite a nightmare through there. So as you guys think about places to put roundabouts, which I'm not saying I'm a fan of them, but I understand their worth, I think that probably would be an intersection worthwhile considering.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other, Director Torado.
Thank you. Graffiti on 99, who's the best person to contact?
We have our maintenance deputy, Tanya Sanguinetti would be our best contact.
I'll reach out. Okay, yeah, there's a couple spots.
Director Pacheco.
Very excited about all the projects in my district, but I'd remiss if I didn't correct. It's El Nido, not El Nido.
Yeah, yeah, you can
But
get,
thank you
you
for,
get in trouble in these parts for saying El Nido. Okay.
You
Right.
got credit for Lake Gustine, and then it went away like that when you said El Nido.
I thought I was looking smart.
All right. Thank you so much for the update, Alan.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, moving right along, folks. These are item number 5. They're information items. These items are included in for informational purposes. No presentation will be made by staff unless board members have any questions. If there are no questions, Chair would entertain them. We don't need a motion. Those are non-action items. Sorry about that. Moving on to item number 6. Or is there anybody that had any questions on any of those? I should follow up that. I don't see anyone, so we'll move on to item number 6. This is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items listed below may be acted upon with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a member of the board, a member of staff, or a member of the public. Is there anyone that would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? I don't see anyone up here. I don't see anybody from staff raising their hand. Is there any member of the public? If not, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion.
I saw Pacheco first, and I heard Samra second. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 7, the Merced County Association of Governments. These are action items. They will be considered separately by the board. Public comment will be available during each item. Item 7A is adopt a preferred scenario for the 2026 Sustainable Community Strategy, and we will go to Meg.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, directors. Today we're bringing you an important milestone in the development of the 2026 Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy. Staff, in partnership with the RTP Roundtable, developed and evaluated 3 different growth scenarios, have different approaches to transportation and land use throughout the county, and the action today is to select a preferred scenario, which will become our 2026 Sustainable Community Strategy. Next slide. So this is just an overview of the presentation. I will try to be brief, but I'm going to give a brief descriptions of the 3 scenarios, go over the performance indicator results, provide an overview of the community engagement feedback, as well as the RTP Roundtable feedback. And again, as I mentioned, the action for today is to select a preferred scenario for the 2026 Sustainable Community Strategy. Next slide. So just briefly, MCAG is required to develop a regional transportation plan. This is a federal requirement. It's a 20-plus year plan. We update it every 4 years. It covers all travel modes. It includes a list of projects from each of your communities. It must meet air quality standards, and it's developed with public input. Next slide, please. So part of the RTP, or a California requirement, is a sustainable community strategy. So it's mandated under Senate Bill 375. And the purpose is to integrate land use and transportation planning to demonstrate how the region can reduce greenhouse gas emissions from passenger vehicles. There are greenhouse gas emission targets for each MPO in the state, and MCAG's 2035 target is 14% below a 2005 baseline. Next slide, please. So to develop the SCS, we use scenarios. The scenarios are used to test and explore how different approaches to land use and transportation can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. We developed 3 scenarios using our land use and travel demand model. Next slide. There's a lot of text on this slide, but essentially these are just the data inputs that go into the scenarios and the modeling. So in orange, we have a growth forecast. We adopted that about 1.5 years ago. We update that every 4 years. There's also land use assumptions, so distribution of growth and densities throughout the county. Transportation infrastructure, I mentioned there's a list of projects with the RTP, and that's based on revenue projected out to the horizon year of 2049 for this plan. And then there's also a set of behavioral assumptions. So we have to make assumptions on the percentage of trips taken by walking, biking, cars, and then also take into consideration carpool and van pool programs in the county. Next slide. So these are the 3 growth scenarios. We presented these to the board last May. That was a while ago now, so I'll provide updated descriptions of these. I'll try to be concise. Okay, next slide. So scenario A is what we're calling the baseline historical trend. So the overview is it continues current development patterns and transportation investments based on existing plans, trends, and policies without any significant shift. So the characteristics of this are no increased emphasis on development in existing urban areas or infill, more focus on development of suburban single-family neighborhoods, which yields to higher reliance on cars, and lower accessibility to transit, biking, and walking infrastructure. We don't necessarily presume that scenario A would be the preferred scenario, but it's kind of like a good benchmark for the other 2 scenarios. Scenario B, next slide, please. As multimodal infill and conservation. So this, the overview is higher density development that requires less land, preserving natural and agricultural lands with increased access to transit and passenger rail. There are a couple AI generated images. So if you see like a car driving on a sidewalk or something, I apologize in advance, but that's, yeah. Yeah. You can thank ChatGPT for those nice touches. But the characteristics are higher density development near major rail stations, including future rail stations. So this scenario assumes it was, developed last spring. It assumes that there is going to be the integrated rail station in downtown Merced, as well as the ACE extensions in Livingston and Atwater. So higher density development in existing urban areas along major transit corridors. Higher density development means we build homes closer together, which means we can use less land overall, conserving natural land and farmland. And this density supports investment in bike, pedestrian, and public transportation infrastructure to reduce dependence on cars. Next slide, please. Scenario C is housing-centered growth with a broader distribution throughout the county. So this scenario includes increased multifamily housing compared to historical trends. So promote housing near jobs and transit corridors, downtowns, UC Merced, unincorporated communities with transit, for example, Planada. Development's not as dense around rail stations as compared to scenario B. And the focus is on reducing commute distances for low-income households by locating housing near employment and transit. Next slide. So we have 7 performance indicators that were adopted by the RTP Roundtable to evaluate the 3 scenarios. This is just a list of them. So greenhouse gas emission reduction per capita, that's the requirement. So that's our greenhouse gas reduction target. vehicle miles traveled per capita. This is kind of the proxy for greenhouse gas emissions as well. Air quality. So we have an air quality model, so we measure different criteria pollutants, so like ozone, PM2.5 for each of the scenarios. Acres of farmland consumed, and this is important farmland, so that includes a set of designations. The acres of wetland preserved, the acres of total land consumed by each of the scenarios, and then housing density, which is the dwelling units per acre. Next slide. So this is our performance report card for the 3 scenarios. On the left column, you'll see those 7 indicators that I just mentioned, and scenario A, B, and C at the top. So we color-coded just to kind of show the performance a little bit easier visually, but all 3 scenarios meet the 14% target set by CARB. The scenario A performs a little worse for VMT, well, for all of them. And then scenario B and C perform pretty similarly. The difference is really just a couple acres of farmland difference. Okay, next slide. We conducted engagement in February to obtain input from the public on the scenarios and priorities when it comes to growth. Participation was modest, but still useful. And next slide. So we had 4 workshops to discuss the SES scenarios in a little bit more detail. And we asked participants what they did and didn't like about each scenario. So I'll briefly summarize that. So for scenario A, there were a couple likes. One participant noted that they liked the yards for single-family homes, with the assumption that there was not a lot of green space with higher density development of suburban neighborhoods, and then dislikes were reliance on cars, lower accessibility to transit, lack of affordable housing, and lack of focus on lower income areas. Next slide. Scenario B, multimodal info and conservation. There were a lot of likes for this one: diversity of housing options, walking, biking, transit access, conservation of natural land, kind of the strengthen the community, more activity, and then everything. But there were no specific dislikes mentioned about this scenario, but there were a couple comments that created a little bit of discussion. One participant mentioned that when UC Merced was first constructed, they anticipated that it would bring more development than it has. Just kind of a comment of that visual of scenario B, kind of like a dense downtown, didn't really come to fruition like they thought it might have previously. And then also there were some concerns about the feasibility and timeline of high-speed rail and the ACE extension into Merced. Scenario C, the affordable housing centered growth. Likes were focused on affordable family homes, seemed like a plan for people, not cars, transit walkable, more affordable for all, less cost for infrastructure, maintain public green space for families, and then dislikes were still requires vehicle to access services, but transit can help, and then dislikes more spread out, not as dense. Next slide. So in addition to those more in-depth scenario or workshops to discuss the scenarios, we wanted to have an online survey that was brief and then could also inform the scenario selection. So we developed a trade-off survey, and the rationale for that was that each scenario represents a different set of priorities, and no scenario can maximize every goal at the same time. So there's trade-offs between the scenarios. So the purpose of this survey was to gauge community land use and transportation priorities. Next slide. Okay, there's 6 questions. I'll go through them briefly. They're also in the staff report if you're a little bit, if you want to see a little bit more detail. But so the first question was, what should be prioritized as housing demand increases? And this kind of like 2 ends of the spectrum. So the left-hand side, it strongly prefers smaller, more affordable homes. And on the right-hand side, strongly prefer larger single-family homes. And then a balance of both in the middle. Question 2 is, when transportation funding is limited, where should more investment go? On the left is strongly prefer investments in bike, ped, and transit, and on the right is strongly prefer widening roads to reduce congestion. The results for this definitely skewed a little bit towards the left. Next slide. Where should most new development be located? So on the left is strongly prefer building in existing urban areas, denser, closer to services. And on the right-hand side is strongly prefer development spread across the region, including near rural communities. Next slide. Question 4 was, how should the region balance growth and environmental protection? On the left-hand side, strongly prefer preserving open space, farmland, and natural areas. And on the right, strongly prefer supporting growth, even if it requires developing land. 2 more. Question 5 was, as the region plans for future growth, how should economic development be balanced with environmental protection? This one, it's a little bit more spread out of a response between strongly preferring prioritizing air, water, and natural resources, even if it limits some economic growth, and then preferring a focus on job creation and economic growth, even if it increases environmental impact. Okay, and the last question, when making regional investment decisions, how should funding be prioritized? So on the left is strongly prefer prioritizing investment in historically underserved and disadvantaged communities, versus on the right, strongly prefer spreading investments a little bit more evenly across the region. Okay, so the roundtable met on February 26th and reviewed the performance outcomes and the engagement findings and discussed the merits of the scenarios and how they align with regional priorities. There's a few notable comments from that discussion that we wanted to share. So the first was similar to the feedback received at the workshops. Members questioned feasibility and timing of high-speed rail and ACE service in Merced County, and whether those services would be operational by the SCS greenhouse gas target year, which is not far away, it's 2035. So scenario B is assuming that high-speed rail and ACE come to Merced County, and that growth is more densely around those stations. There was also some questions about SCS consistency requirements. Currently, legislation doesn't require local jurisdictions to update general plans to be consistent with the SCS. This is a visionary plan. It's just kind of like a regional consensus about the vision for the region. It's updated every 4 years, so we'll probably be doing this again in 4 years. But there are certain state funding programs that require applicants obtain a letter of SCS consistency from the MPO. So like the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Program, but that's not a major deal. And then another comment was that while the scenarios are framed differently, scenarios B and C are pretty similar. They both include infill development, and it was suggested that scenario C be renamed to something to reflect infill development instead of affordable housing centered growth. So that could be a decision of the board if you would like us to change the name of that scenario C to something like infill and housing centered growth. Overall, the roundtable expressed the strongest support for scenario C. They liked the balance of infill development and broader distribution of growth across the county versus more concentrated on the east side of the county or future rail investments. And they also like the support for walkable and bikeable communities. There's a little bit more detail on the RTP roundtables. We took an initial poll and then a vote at the roundtable. So if you're interested in those details, they're in the staff report. But next slide. Okay, so next steps are this month, we're asking the board to select a preferred scenario. In April, we will be finalizing the draft of the RTP SCS. We'll release the plan in mid-May for a 55-day required public review period. And then we plan to bring back the final plan for adoption in August. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. And we also have Ravi with the LSA online too, who's helping with the technical analysis too, if there's any questions related to that. So,
All right, thank you for that presentation, Meg. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
Can we put the scenario table back on, just for the discussion, please?
Director Pereira.
Thank you. At the workshops, give me a kind of a sense for who showed up. I don't know if demographics works or something else, but.
It was, so the most participants we had was in the city of Merced, that workshop. So it was a mix of people from community-based organizations, business owners, bicycle and pedestrian advocates. Yeah, that was.
And local people?
Yes, yeah, local, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Do any members of the public have any questions on this item? Anybody online? Not see anyone? All right. So what we are tasked with doing on this, I would ask the maker of this motion to, as part of their motion, it would be to adopt a preferred scenario. It seems like from what I got out of the staff report that Meg just gave, the preferred scenario after working with the different groups and surveys is scenario C. I'd remind everybody that this is a planning document. This isn't something that says if you go with scenario C, that if for some reason we don't follow every letter of the law of scenario C, that somehow you're going to get any kind of trouble. This is just kind of, as a region, kind of setting some goals and expectations out there as we go back to our individual jurisdictions and look at things that may or may not affect this, that you kind of keep that in mind. So with that, Chair will entertain a motion. And preferred scenario? B? You want B? The preferred scenario that was suggested was C, but if C. Okay, just wanted to clarify. So we have a motion by Director Pedroso, and I have a second by Director Samra. All those in favor, Director Pereira.
They had a
Scenario C. All right. Way I read it is a scenario B is more centered around like. I think they're all doing that, but scenario B goes to like where you're more by at the like where high speed rail is going to be. That's where you're looking at growth to be around those where C doesn't do that. Meg, I'll ask you to clarify on that.
Yeah, so scenario, actually, if you go back to the slide with the different colors, the table with all the numbers. Okay, so scenario C performed the best in all of these performance metrics. The one where there was a little bit of a difference was scenario B conserved 2 more acres of farmland compared to scenario C. But scenario B, the assumption is that high-speed rail comes to Merced County before the horizon year of 2035 for this, for the greenhouse gas target. And then, so the communities like Livingston, Atwater, and Merced, the city of Merced would receive more growth versus scenario C, which is a little bit more evenly distributed around like Los Banos, Gustine, Dos Palos, but also includes infill and performs pretty well.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was right. That's the one I wanted. I wanted B. That's the motion that I made.
And I'll tell you, something that gets, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Yeah, there's something to think about is, there's been a lot of groups that have pushed for affordable housing. I've worked with groups in unincorporated Merced County to try to get affordable housing built, and it's just so much more expensive that it stops housing being built. And so I'm with Supervisor Pedroso. I think the infill I like, that to me anyways is the best way. And then we just need housing built. It doesn't matter, because if you build a $1 million house, well, somebody lives in a $500,000 house may buy it, and then somebody lives in a $300,000 house moves to the 500. It really, more housing is better than less housing, and I think people are duped into thinking affordable housing is good, and it's not bad. I'm not against affordable housing, but let's get housing that can be built versus housing that can't be built. So I'll support Supervisor Pedroso.
So this kind of speaks to one of the concerns that was voiced at the RTP roundtable. I think that the name for scenario C, affordable housing centered growth, might be a little bit misleading because it is infill focused like scenario B. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like subsidized affordable housing. It's the assumptions that the trend for multifamily housing is a little bit higher than historically, but it could be like duplexes, fourplexes. It doesn't have to be these very large affordable housing projects.
So not affordable housing. They want the housing to be affordable, not affordable housing. When you say affordable housing, you're talking about government subsidized,
Yeah.
cost way more money. Builders don't want to do it, right? So that's not what you're saying in C?
That's correct.
Or what are you saying in C? Housing that's affordable or
C
affordable?
is a little denser and slightly more a multifamily housing compared to B. I mean, to be truthful, from I was just checking with Elizabeth before because I can't bug Meg in the middle of this, but B and C are really, really, really similar. And this is a visionary document. I think that if we could go back and do this over again, we would have renamed C, but it was important to keep the name consistent with what the outreach and what we had been doing with, we didn't want to change the name up and it looked like a different scenario. I think once we got through a certain point, C being infill and what would we, in housing, what do we,
Like infill and housing centered growth.
Yes. So the the nuances are slight. I think either one, as you can see, perform well. From what we're needing to do in terms of the GHG reduction, they're both showing reductions of 15% and a fraction more. So
I think the short answer to your question, Director Perez, it's building houses that are affordable, not subsidized affordable housing, is what this scenario
Yes.
takes into account. So,
it's not capital A affordable housing.
yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna probably just ask that we start that motion over again if it's okay with you guys, so that we get clarification. Director Pedroso, you made the first motion. Would you like to move for scenario B? Is there a second? So we have a motion by Director Pedroso, a second by Director Serrato. Meg?
I wanted to add one clarification. So the scenarios perform similarly. We are probably going to be back here asking to select another preferred scenario in 2030. So if there are concerns about high-speed rail not coming to fruition, that could be something that's addressed later on too. It is a visionary plan. So
And just to be clear, and I don't know that I said this earlier, but B has a slightly stronger concentration of that growth on the in those east side communities associated with the rail investments, as opposed to, maybe you said that, distributed more broadly.
Okay. So we understand, and I'm going to ask the question really quickly to Meg. What does this do? Because, part of this, when you go through these processes, we talk about setting up groups, whatnot, and your roundtable group that went through all of this. It seems by what you presented that the scenario C was the preferred scenario by the group. Ultimately, this is the governing body who's going to make their decision. But what does that do as far as when you go to submit this, the governing body group has maybe a different preference than your working groups?
it's from the beginning, we've let the RTP roundtable know that it's the board's decision to select the preferred scenario, that they would be making a recommendation, but it's ultimately the board's decision. And there was a lot of discussion about the merits of scenario B and what they did like about it, namely the infill. So I don't think that there would be a major conflict.
Okay, perfect. Then, so then I guess we'll call for, if there's no other questions or comments, Director Ammenbill.
Actually, scenario C is is sort of like the way in Los Banos we're thinking. moving forward with, we have a lot of, in the past 10, 15 years, they built a lot of 4 and 5 bedroom homes, which we're not looking at those anymore. We want 2-bedroom homes, 2 baths, like they did in the 40s and 50s. So scenario C, that's the affordability that we're trying to do as a city, so we can get houses people can afford instead of these $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses. And so I'm for scenario C because of that, but
Mr. Chair,
I just want to make that comment.
Director Samra?
thank you. And for us in Livingston, number one complaint we get, like, I'm sure it's for every community now at this point, is the affordability of the home. That, when you're working in Livingston, you're a hardworking family, when homes cost $450,000 to $500,000, they're very, very unaffordable. By having a little more denser, a little bit smaller homes, it makes it more, available to others. So I'm kind of leaning towards scenario C myself.
Appreciate those comments, and I don't know if anybody else wants to share, but I'm tending to go with, in my mind, with C specifically because I think B and C are very similar. The difference being that high-speed rail and ACE and all those things that are supposed to happen at some point in the future that I don't think I'll be alive for. And then it focuses this effort around growth in those places where high-speed rail and all those things are going to go, which then kind of leaves the west side of the county out of those scenarios, because if high-speed rail does come through, it will go through the west side, but it just won't stop there. So we have a motion and a second on the floor, so we'll call for the question. Oh, Director Serrato.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, with C, it's a page, but overview, increase multifamily housing, your jobs and transit corridors. Increase multifamily housing development compared to historical trends. Promote housing, your jobs and transit corridors. I think we're going to our general plan review and our general plan revise in the city of Merced too. And we haven't squared a good concept yet, but I think that is really a good model for us to kind of density clusters around, essentially what that says, density clusters around shopping, around transit is going to be important. And then the big thing too is, as it says here, is development is not as dense around rail stations, and with so much up in the air about where the high-speed rail station is going to be, and a big potential that it's moved away from downtown Merced. I think if we're putting a big emphasis here, I know I seconded the motion, talking myself out of it, I guess. But
I was going to ask if you were going to remove your second.
No, I'll keep it. We can. But I just think, but yet too, if we're going to focus on that, I think we're focusing on something on, even though this is a visionary document, but if we're focusing on that, we're focusing a lot of energy on something that there's a decent chance might not happen. That station could be somewhere else, not downtown. So
Agreed.
that's another.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Director Pereira.
So instead of an up or down vote and have to redo a motion, I'm going to move to amend the motion to item B. And if item B passes, fine. If not, then we can vote on item C.
Council?
So for an amendment, if you are making an amendment to the motion, the amendment is voted on first. There needs to be a second to your amendment. So your motion would take precedence, and if passed, would change the original motion to item C.
So you
So can you clarify, is it going to be scenario C to begin with, or
give me 1 second. I want to clarify. Could you, because I didn't hear quite your motion.
Just amend the original motion with scenario C instead of B.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Is there a second?
Director Pedroza made the original motion. It was seconded. Director Pereira has moved to amend that motion to change the preferred scenario to scenario C. If there's a second to his motion, there will be a vote on that amendment. Then there will be a second vote on the original motion, either as originally made or as amended.
I'll second the amendment with the infill centered growth as the name.
Very good. Thank you for adding that. Are you good with that as part of it? All right. So we have an amendment on the floor. The motion was made by Director Pereira, seconded by Director Amabil. I would ask that we do a roll call vote on this item.
And this is just for clarity.
A vote on the amendment.
This is a vote on the amendment to amend his motion to be scenario C. So a yes vote would be you're in favor of that. A down vote, a nay vote would be that you're not in favor of that. Just for clarification. Joy, roll call vote.
Director Kale?
Yes.
Director Reed?
Yes.
Director Ford?
Yes.
Director Samra?
Yes.
Director Amabil?
Yes.
Director Serrato?
Yes.
Director Pacheco? Director Pedroso?
Yeah.
Director McDaniel?
The visionary document.
Yeah, then vote no.
I'm sorry, Director McDaniel? Director Pereira? And Chair Silvera?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries.
So now we'll vote on the motion that has been amended to say that the preferred scenario would be scenario C with the name change that Director Amabil added to it. We don't need to vote on it then? Okay, then I stand corrected. The motion carries unanimously.
No.
Sorry, you do need to do another.
She said I
on the
did.
amended motion. I apologize.
She,
Yes.
but we never passed it. Listen, I'm going.
You've passed the, yeah, you've passed the amendment. Now you need to vote on the underlying motion.
Yes, that's what I thought we were going down that road, but I'm open to the interpretation. So there is an amended motion, or the new motion that has been amended says that item C is scenario C is the preferred one with the name changes that Director Amabil put in there and was agreed to by the maker of the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion does not carry unanimously with one in the dissension and being Director Pedroso. Thank you, everybody. We're moving right along now to item 7B. This is adopt a resolution 2026/03-19-01 in support of MCAG's application for community project funding, congressionally directed spending for $1.7 million to construct the Highway 152 Pacheco Boulevard Regional Path, and we will turn it over to Mary Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The action item before you is to affirm the application that was submitted to Congressman Gray's office and Senator Padilla and Schiff's office earlier this month to hopefully get some funding to move forward with the construction of the multi-use path along Highway 152 between the city limits of the city of Los Banos and the Merced College Los Banos campus. This project isn't new. It's been talked about for 9 years, since 2017, when MCAG conducted an initial feasibility study for the project. And shortly thereafter, in 2018, it was included as a West Side regional project in the first Measure V implementation plan, where it has been ever since. Most recently, the lead agency for the project shifted to be the County of Merced, and MCAG worked with Caltrans and the CTC to create a local alternative transportation improvement program, and I'll get back to that in a second, how that's connected to the bike path. But in the last couple years, the project has evolved. The preferred alignment is along the south side of the highway. And as it sits today, there are two options for a crossing of the highway. One being the lesser expensive option of an at-grade pedestrian crossing, which would be approximately $4 million, and then a second option, which would be a grade separating crossing over the highway, which adds another $5 to $10 million on top of the $4. Currently, there is only $2.3 million of West Side regional project funding available through Measure V. So there's a gap to fill, and staff believed that this community project funding was a potential to help fill that gap and leverage Measure V dollars instead of having to rely on that completely. However, they're going back to the LATIP. There is also some LATIP funding available both now and in the future, but we also may want to save that funding for other projects or use to fill gaps on this project as well. The application for funding was prepared with support of Townsend Public Affairs, the MCAG's federal lobbying firm. It has already been submitted between the time I wrote this staff report and today. That window opened and closed. We never know quite when that's going to be, but it happens suddenly and then closes. So the action today would be to affirm that the submission can move forward and then provide support from this body of the project. And I will just add that when we submitted that application, and thank you to the cities of Los Banos, Merced, Livingston, Gustine, the County of Merced, and Merced College for providing letters of support for that application. And when we brought this to TRB last week, there were no concerns with moving forward. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments for Mary Michael on this item? Not seeing anyone. Is there any members of the public that have any questions or comments on this item? Doesn't look like there's anybody online. All right, back to the dais for discussion or a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 03-1901.
So we have a motion by Director Amabile. We have a second by Director Samra. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Michael. Moving right along, item 7C. This is approved Measure V programming for 2025 implementation plan, and we are going to go to Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is unchanged as to the item that was considered by the board last month. This is part one of two steps for us to get our measure implementation plan update out into the public for public review before adoption. So this being the first action is for the board to approve the recommended programming schedules for the East and West Side regional project funding through the years 29-30. They are in the packet, but you can also see up on the screen both the East and West Side recommended programming schedules were approved by their respective committees and have not been changed since they were presented to the board last month. Thank you.
Okay, well, I will open it up for questions from the public, but thank you for that attentiveness there, Director McDaniel. Is there any other questions or comments by members of the board? Not seeing anyone. We'll ask, is there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item? Not getting any signal that there's anybody online. So now we'll bring it back to the dais where Director McDaniel has made a motion to approve. And we have a second by, it was a coin flip here. I'm going to go with Director Amabile on this one. I'll get you on the next one, Director Kale. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We have not a unanimous vote. We have Director Perry, with a nay vote, and the rest are
Pedroso?
ayes. What did I say? Pedroso. I'm sorry. Thank you. I got it. Close. All right. That motion, I'm used to saying approves unanimously. You're throwing me off a little bit, Josh. It's okay, though. I appreciate your dedication, sir. Moving right along to item 7D. This is to direct staff to release the 2025 Measure V implementation plan for public review and comment, and we will go to Stacy again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the actual document that thankfully it can only be taken action now because we have the programming schedules. So those programming schedules that you just approved are in this document. This is the actual document that has a history of all of the expenditures through the measure. It gets updated every 2 years. It is solely on the projects or the funding allocations that this body governs. So that is essentially transit and then the east side, west side. The one thing I do want to note before I turn it over to the board for questions is on page 4 of the plan, or page 146 of your packet. There is highlighted sections that indicate that there will be public hearings. Those details have been set, so the actual version, unless there's concern with the board, the actual version that we will post tomorrow to begin the public review process will include the details of those public hearings. We're required to have 2, one on the east side, one on the west side. We're actually going to hold 4. We're going to have 2 virtual hearings on April 7th, one at the lunch hour, 12 o'clock, and one at 5 o'clock, both virtual. And then on April 9th, there'll be an in-person public hearing at 5 p.m. in Merced, and on April 14th, a 5 p.m. hearing in Los Banos. So those have already been plugged in. It's just they were scheduled after we already had the agenda deadline. So the one that we release to the public will include all of those details. I'm happy to go into any further detail if the board would like me to.
Right. Are there any questions by members of the board for Stacy? No? You look like you might have a question over there. Okay.
And I should specify what I'm needing is the board to authorize me to release this out for public review. Once public review is concluded, any changes or anything or not will come back to the board for the final adoption.
So this is a
Correct.
motion and second to release it for public review.
Yes.
Are there any members of the public that have any comments on this item? Not seeing or hearing anyone, we will bring it back
Okay.
to the dais.
Yeah, okay, I'll make the comment. I love seeing the roundabout on the cover.
There you
I
go.
love roundabouts, I love the cover, I love America.
There you go. Appreciate those fine comments there, sir. So now, hold on,
Before we make a motion,
Director
just-
Samra has a comment.
I agree with Director Pereira. I'm glad that we are starting to adopt roundabouts. I think they're the most efficient way. Livingston were one of the first ones to get a roundabout. We were heavily criticized. There's a little bit of a learning curve on the driver's side, but in the end, I think it works better.
Perfect. All right, I thought I heard, was that Director McDaniel that made the motion? And Pereira second. So we have a motion by Director McDaniel, second by Director Pereira. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, we're moving right along, folks. Item 8, these are discussion items. These items will be presented separately in order to allow board members to ask questions or provide direction to staff. And these goes discussion items, and we're going to go to 8A. This is the draft action element for the 2026 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. And we'll go back to Meg again. Thank you, Meg.
Thank you, Chair. Another RTP item, but I promise this one will be brief. So this item is to present the draft action element for the RTP. Action element's a required component of the Regional Transportation Plan, and it outlines the activities and coordination efforts that MCAG will pursue in partnership with local agencies and state partners to implement the plan. The actions for the 2026 RTP SES were developed based on the objectives included in the 2022 plan. We reviewed and refined, consolidated where there were redundant items, and then incorporated some updates based on current priorities and regulatory requirements. And then we also organized them based on the goals of the plan. So the draft action element is included as an attachment to the staff report. The vision and goals came to the governing board last year, so those have already been presented to this body. But what we're specifically asking for feedback on is the bulleted items in red, if you have any comments. And if you do have any comments, I'd be happy to take those now, or you can email them to me, and then those will be reflected in the draft plan, which will be released in May.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Meg? Director Pereira?
Hi, Meg. So there's something that and I apologize, it's just an informed question or statement even maybe. Bike paths and pedestrian facilities make a lot of sense in a lot of places, and they make zero sense in a lot of places. So is there a way to differentiate that in this, or do we just have to, because it helps us get grant funding, we go all in on bike and pedestrian facilities?
I think that MCG is in alignment that we do promote bicycle and pedestrian facilities where they do make sense. I know that there are certain areas where we don't want to direct pedestrians and cyclists for safety purposes. So I think that is in alignment. I don't know that we need to get to that level of specificity here, but I definitely hear and understand that concern.
All right, thanks. I appreciate your input.
Yeah, I would say that one of the places it doesn't make sense is why we're trying to do a bike path in Los Banos to the college and just not let them ride alongside Highway 152 where cars are going 70 miles an hour. That doesn't make a lot of sense to put it there. All right, as this was an informational item only, I guess I'm going to ask the public. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to comment on this item? See anyone? Meg, thank you so much. We're going to move to item 8B. This is the draft fiscal year 26-27 overall work program and budget. We have Nav and Elizabeth tag teaming on this one.
Good afternoon. I beat Nav up here, so I get to go first. So this is regarding our draft budget for 26-27. Next slide, please. So as you all know, as the directors, but also for the public, MCAG is a number of agencies and is the administrator of essentially a number of agencies. So there's the BUS, YARTS, RWA, and MCAG. Today we're talking about the budget under MCAG. We do publish it separately, and it does have its own state and federal requirements. When you see that column on the right for other programs, those are other things that MCAG undertakes, but they're not part of the budget that we prepare for, Caltrans and the federal agencies to review. So we're talking about everything in the red section today. Next slide. Okay, mandated and ongoing work that you will find all throughout our overall work program. There are several funding programs that we administer. I think our funding programs have the most acronyms by far, so they win the acronym contest, but there's a bunch of them up there. There's air quality programs, there are transit programs, just road rehab programs, so we administer many of them. Some are state and some are federal sources. We're the planning agency, so we do the regional transportation planning agency to coordinate, planning countywide. We do transit and active transportation planning. You've heard a lot pretty recently about air quality work that we do, and you're going to be hearing a lot about it over the next year or two because it's still a problem, but we do our air quality planning. We do transportation modeling to see what's going on in our county, and we coordinate with the region and the state really on goods movement, rail, and those types of things. So those are kind of our core functions, I suppose. So the fiscal year isn't open till June, so there might be one or two that you're saying, well, I haven't adopted this yet. But for the end of the fiscal year, we have adopted the Mr. MAP, that first one there. Our network vulnerability assessment will be completed soon by the end of the year, and you can see the other items on there. Some are completed and some will be completed in the next couple months. I would highlight that, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet there. Active Transportation Program Cycle 8 support. It should be either tomorrow or Monday that the state will be releasing a call for projects for the active transportation program. So we've been working with the local agencies to hopefully see if we can get some more applications submitted and hopefully some projects funded. So this time we're really, offering assistance to the agencies, and hopefully we can support them in some applications for this year. And that's happening March through June. So that's why it's in 25-26. Carryover projects carrying over to 26-27. We have a safety program that we will be implementing and working with the agencies and public on. Our RTP and SES, which you've heard a lot about, will be adopted in August, so they're carried over to next fiscal year. And then we have some of our other kind of general work, and also you see on there at the bottom REAP 2.0. So that is the we haven't talked about REAP that much recently, but it's the secondary kind of grant program that we'll be administering and working with the cities and the county on. So our major projects, of course, adopt our RTP, and some, I don't want to be too repetitive, it's the things that we do often, but we're working with TJPA on a bus stop assessment and a short-range transit plan. We will actually in 2027 begin our next regional growth forecast. So it's like done in 2028. So for those who things seem like they were done just a year ago, they were, but we're already preparing for, 2028. That last bullet there regarding census preparation, Census Bureau and the State Department of Finance has already reached out to us to start the census process. And it's really interesting because a lot of what our role will be to look at census boundaries, look at populations, look at new addresses, right? You guys have developed new neighborhoods and things like that, and make sure that those are all accounted for in the 2030 census. So we're already starting to work on that. Next slide, please. Were there any questions on those kind of content items before I give Nav the number slide? Oh, I can do it. I told him I was going to make edits if he let me do this one, so I won't.
If I let Elizabeth do it, she could add more money to the budget. So, good afternoon, directors. The overall work budget for that's wrong. 26-27 is about $5.3 million. That's a 2% decrease from last year. This budget does include a cost of living adjustment. I think there's a handout that's going to be handed out to the directors. It's basically how we determine how we determine the cost of living adjustment, right? Over the last 6 years, MCAG has proposed a 15% increase over the last 15 years. What we do is we take a blended approach. We take the Western Regional CPI and the San Francisco Oakland Hayward CPI. As you can see in the handout, the Western region over the last 6 years rose about 24.5%, and then the San Francisco Oakland Hayward CPI rose about 19.5%. So we took a blended approach, and the average is about 22%. And so over the last 6 years, we've only increased our CPI by cost of living by 15%. So this budget, we are proposing a 3% increase. The impact to this budget is only $58,000 for the cost of living. There's other agencies that will bear the cost of it, and we will present that at the time with TJPA, RWA, and YARDS as well. Communication increase.
Director Pereira has a question for you.
Yeah, please repeat and explain that last comment you made about who pays for what.
Oh, so this impact to this, so the overall impact of cost of living adjustment, if we talk about all agencies, RWA, TJPA, MCAG, and YARDS, it's about $240,000. But this budget we're reflecting on this MPO budget, it's only $58,000. And so then TJPA will have that cost of living adjustment, which there's can we go back to the first
It's
slide?
basically about how our staff hours are allocated to all of the agencies that we do. So the 58,000 will impact essentially the red box part. And that's going to be largely Elizabeth's team for planning. If you added up so you basically take that what is the total? $240,000 increase to salaries and benefits, and you would divide it across the 1, 2, 3, 4 different columns based on the percentage of staffing that is allocated to those. So the total cost for, let's say, everything under my responsibility with the COLA is $240,000. But the MCAG budget, which is the MPO budget, which is what Caltrans does, it only represents $58,000 of that $240,000.
And some of that is that admin 16 positions, a percentage of it goes as well into the budget. That's what comes up $58,000.
So basically what you're saying is the 3% COLA, you're not just asking it for the folks that are housed under the MCAG umbrella. You're saying 3%. So as we look at the budgets for RWA and TJPA, we'll see that increases when we look at those.
Because everyone is an MCAG employee.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, okay, so let me ask a question. You're saying how many thousand is it in this budget? 48,000? 58?
Yeah.
So the 58,000, go back to the slide with the boxes, or the red box, right there. So you're asking for us to approve $58,000 of increase for 8 staff members?
No, overall. I apologize. It's $58,000 overall for all 8 staff plus the partial of the 16 up there that we have for the executive directors, accounting department, PIO department, and then the HR department.
The blue box on top of the administration. So let's take my job, for example. I'm one of the 16. Only a percentage of my time is under the MPO budget. The rest of my time is on the others. So the hours of my time that are getting charged to the MPO budget, where the red column is, those hours are reflected in that 58,000. The rest of my time, it's really complicated, but the rest of my time, as it's going to fall, it will get charged to RWA, to yards, and the bus. So it's a partial of my time and the 15 others that are in those that dark black blue box, because our position hours are distributed across all the agencies. So it's partial for the 16 at varying levels depending on how many hours you have to the MCAG functions, and then plus the 8 that are dedicated solely to the MCAG budget.
And so then the 63,000 or the $240,000 would be divided by the 63 employees?
So I can give
plus the partial of our time of the 16. So the 16 of us are divided across all 4. So if you took my job and let's just say it equally, I'm one of the 16, and let's just say I spend 25% of my time under MCAG, 25 under RWA, 25 under yards, 25 under the bus. The increase of my 25 hours, or that percentage share that go to MCAG, that cost increase is going to be in this budget. The cost increase for my quarter of my time in the RWA world will go to the RWA budget. The costing, so on and so forth. So the 6
employees, are we giving $240,000?
81.
81.
81.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great increase for 8 employees. So 81.
And I do apologize for the confusion. The way, like I said, the way the agency's budget is broken up, we have to, even though everybody's an MCAG employee, each of those agencies pay for the salaries of those employees. So if, like, James is an MCAG employee, but RWA pays for that salary.
Yeah.
So, and I do apologize for the confusion. So, so there's an increase of communications of 161%, but that is a pass-through cost that will charge yards. The reason why it's easier and it's cheaper for MCAG to pay it because we get a discounted rate versus yards. And then utility increases by 80%, cost of just electricity just going higher and higher every year. And then professional services decreased by 1%. Fixed assets, I know we talked previously about remodeling our office conference room. When we looked at it, it doesn't make any sense to expand our conference room as we are, it's just too difficult and too costly to expand our conference room. So we decreased that by 48%. And then audits, we decreased it by 36%. Next slide, please.
Nav, could you go back just because it's just a crazy number. Communication increase of 161.
Yeah,
you might have
so
said that, but I wasn't paying attention.
So when we get, like, for example, tablets for yards, MCAG gets a better contractor rate through Verizon versus yards does. So, but we pass that cost on to yards. Right, so like, for example, a monthly rate under MCAG is like $50. If you get it through yards, it'd be like $80, $90 per use. And this is unlimited versus per use. You get a fixed amount of minutes.
So that's it's a product of just timing.
Yes.
If you see the 161% increase. Okay, very good. Thank you.
So MCAG is funded by federal, state, and local. When we talk about federal, we're talking about PO, which is a planning dollars, 5303. FTA funds, and then complete streets. And then state funds, you got SB1, planning, programming, and monitoring. And then TDA funds, which includes LTF, STA, which we don't use, it's a pass-through cost, but we still administer those funds through our budget. So this is how the MPO budget is funded. We also get REAP funds through here, through the state funds. Next slide, please. So I know this is a little small, but it's in the packet, but this is how MCAG is funded, right? So when we talk about a decrease of 94,000, we do see an increase of SB1 funds. As Elizabeth talked about, we had some planning for the 25-26 that's getting carried forward to 26-27. Those dollars are carrying forward. But then we do have a decrease in TDA funds, which would help pay for those TDA audits that all agencies paid for. It paid for all agencies. And then we also had a decrease in the California Adaptation Planning Grant, which relates to a decrease of $94,000 in funding. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Nav?
On the revenues.
On the revenues. Yes. Don't see any at this point, so we'll go to the expenditures.
So when we talk about expenditures, you see a decrease in fixed assets. We went from 254 down to 131. Professional services, 2.26 to 2.5 million. And then training and travel, we went from $55,000 to $47,000. And then audit services, $133,000 to $85,000. So those decreases of $94,000 makes up the 5.3 and the 2% reduction in our budget overall. So any questions?
Questions on expenditures? That's it.
That's it.
Are there any questions by members of the public on this item? Again, this is our draft budget. We will be voting on this budget in our next meeting.
Yes.
Correct? Yes. This is just the draft presentation of it.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's real quick. This is a budget that actually it's lower than the prior year, so that's a
Yeah.
pretty remarkable accomplishment. You don't see that too much. So.
Well, there's also like studies that have been completed. So, and then we also have new employees, as you can see, new faces. So they do come in at a lower salary than the previous.
We also we're not proposing any new staff.
And no new positions either.
Right. If there are no further questions, we will move on to the next item. We're going to the TJPA, and this is action items. Again, they will be considered separately by the board. Public comment will be available on each item. Item 9A is the approval of 160,000 annual revenue service hours for inclusion in the operations and maintenance RFP, and we will go to Serenity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, directors. Good afternoon. So as you know, staff has been working diligently to get our operations and maintenance request for proposals out for our upcoming contract that will begin in November of 2027. In doing so, kind of the last piece of the puzzle is setting the service hours for the contract. Staff took a look at our current service levels across all of our services, fixed route, paratransit, and microtransit. We looked at planned expansions for microtransit, natural growth that we've been seeing for paratransit, and then the possibility of some adjustments through our fixed route system. And we came up with service levels for 120,000 hours for fixed route, 20,000 annual hours for paratransit, and 20,000 for microtransit. In the contract, we will be able to have a little bit of a buffer, plus or minus, change those service hours as we adapt and things change throughout the county. But setting these hours does allow proposers to set their costs, anticipate their staffing and their maintenance plans for the life of the contract. And again, it does allow TJPA some flexibility in our service hours as well. So we are asking that the board approves 160,000 annual service hours for the life of the new contract. This can have some tweaks as we go into negotiations with the proposers, but it will probably remain around that number. But if there are any questions, I am happy to take them.
Right. Are there any questions by members of the board on this item? So I'll make Director Pereira? Oh, I want to just kind of make a comment is, since how I do sit on the arts board and I think that it's very wise of us to ask for, the reason why this is coming to us is this is an addition to the hours that we had in our previous one. It's wise for us to kind of pad those hours a little bit, because if we go over a certain percentage threshold, it triggers that you have to go back to renegotiate your contract with the provider. I would rather that we plan for those ahead of time and give ourselves a little bit of room in there, so that if for some reason something changes and we have to increase hours, then now we're having to potentially in the middle of the RFP go back out, and you all know how nothing gets any cheaper, and if you have to go back and renegotiate a contract in the middle of it, that could be less than perfect for us. Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give credit to Serenity and Nav and to the transit team, because they put a lot of work. It takes a lot of crystal balling and an analysis and everything to try to anticipate what our transit needs are going to be over a 7-year period into the future. And I just want to underscore that it took a lot of deliberation and collaboration and research and analysis and meetings to come to this number, and I have full confidence in the team and the work they did. So just to underscore that this wasn't just a number that we plucked, and not that I think you would think that, but that there really is a lot of time and effort that goes into trying to get this number right.
And I will also say, while we set the service hours for each individual service, we will have flexibility in moving those if, for some reason we decide that maybe microtransit isn't the way we want to go on the west side, we want to go towards fixed route, we would have the ability to move those hours. They aren't set in those categories. But again, it allows contractors, while planning their proposal, to kind of figure out where the hours need to go.
Director Pereira, and then with Director Serrato.
Yeah, just how many hours are in the current contract?
142.
Thank you.
Director Serrato.
I think you just answered it, but how does this relate, if at all, to any potential reconsideration of the routes? If we
Yes, we've took that into consideration. We see that we might have a little bit of change in our fixed routes, but I think as we do adjust our fixed routes, the hours will probably remain similar. We'll change the routes, make some efficiencies, but in finding those efficiencies, we might add those hours to another route or add another bus for better headways. So we took those things into consideration, absolutely.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, Trinity used to be on the other side of this, so she knows about those hours and reopening contracts. Yeah, very good. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item? Not seeing any, I will bring it back to the dais where the chair will entertain a motion. I have a motion by Director Pereira, and I heard a second by Director Serrato. Was it Pedroso? Oh, sorry. Man. Directors Pereira and Directors Pedroso made and seconded that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and let the record reflect that Director Pacheco is no longer with us.
Thank you.
All right, we have no discussion items. I said Pedroso again. I'm sorry.
you said Pacheco is no longer with us.
Well, I mean, he left the meeting. Yes, at the meeting. Thank you. Okay. Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority, action items. Item 11A is select one, Highway 59 landfill administration building structure type from the following options. Option 1 is a traditional site building, bricks and mortar, or option 2, a prefabricated building, or option 3, a modular building. And we will go to Nav and James on this item.
Thank you, Director. Next slide, please. So back in April of 25, staff brought a recommendation for a brick and mortar building with the footprint of 12,000 square feet. The board has some concerns about the size of the building and also not looking at other options for an admin building. So this item is basically walks through three different types of buildings, along with a reduction of the footprint of the building. So we went from 12,000 to 10,000. That's a 15% reduction in the office building. We're also going to be looking at a lifespan of 40 to 50 years. That's without any recommendation from our master plan right now. So this is as is, no any recommendation from the SES master plan. That's going to be coming to this board in a later item. Our current building is about 7,900 square feet. It's over 20 years old. It is a modular, which it is deteriorating real fast. Like, I'm scared to walk through it because I think I'm going to fall through the floor, but that's why I don't go out there much. But so this item is to look at the three different types of options. Next slide, please. So what we looked at was service life, upfront cost, building time, durability, life cycle of maintenance cost, energy efficiency, and if that building needs to be replaced within the 50 years of the landfill, right? As you can see, those are the three criterias. Brick and mortar, 50 to 75 years. Prefab, 30 to 40 years. A prefab basically is a structure that's made in a shop and then put together at our site. And then you have a modular, which is 20 to 30 years. As we know, brick and mortar is always more expensive, right? More expensive than a prefab and more expensive than a modular. It takes longer to build it, but it's more durable. It's over the life of the building, it's cost effective. Modular, it's moderate, but then a prefab is modular, moderate, and then a modular is poor when we talk about durability and maintenance of the building. In the 40 to 50 years, there's a possibility that the modular might be replaced during the life of the landfill. Even though the landfill has a 40 to 50 year airspace, staff still has to be out there to maintain the gas wells, any maintenance on the facility when it comes to closing out the landfill. Any questions about this detailed comparison? Yes.
Director Pereira.
Yeah, so at the end of the airspace of the landfill, how many people will need to be on site? It seems like the size of the building for the last 30 years is going to be way oversized. So
yes,
what
that
are
is
we at?
correct. That is a question for James, but the way the state's going, I don't know. I mean, they keep adding more regulations to landfills that it gets a little costly. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add, Director. That 40 to 50 year of airspace capacity right now, as Nav said, we have our master plan ongoing that is probably going to add to that. But even if the landfill doesn't expand, we may have to have a transfer station or something else on site. So the staffing, it would go down, but not by 80%. It might drop in half. So, if we've got 35 people out there right now, maybe we'd have 20. But again, depending on the master study plan, in my opinion, there's a good chance that we're going to be on that facility for close to 100 years. So
I won't be here.
And the reason why we put 40 to 50, this board hasn't hasn't adopted the methodology to expand what SES is, and I don't want to make a hypothetical assumption, and the board says, no, we're not going to go that route. So this is assuming the current airspace that we have at our Highway 59 facility. Next slide, please. So we look at costs by square foot, build time, service years, and the estimated cost for those three options. When we look at a brick and mortar, anywhere from $375 to $550 a square foot. The cost anywhere from $4.5 to $6.3 million at a 10,000 square feet building. When we talk about a prefab building, it's anywhere from $300 to $425 a square foot, $3.8 million to $5.5 million to estimated to construct. And then when we look at a modular, it's about $250 to $375 a square foot. The estimated cost is $3.2 to $4.7 million. But we're also talking about 20 to 30 year service life, so we may have to replace that modular at some point in the future within the 50 years, which might cost additional, with inflation, it might be another 3.7, 3.8, or whatever the cost is going to be in 30 years. So staff recommendation is a brick and mortar. The cost, yes, it's a higher cost up front, but best aligned with 40 to 50 years of landfill operations. There's a lot of variables at the landfill. We got, heavy equipment. We have rodent issues, dust control. Some of those items, some of those modular, like the modular or the prefab, are, with the rodents, the modular, they'll just eat through those modulars. We have them right now. There's like big old holes on the bottom of our modular if you go over there. A prefab, if you look at a heavy equipment drives by, over time, the building gets kind of, how do I say this?
Loose?
Yeah, less sturdy. And then with the brick and mortar, it's a solid building for 40 to 50 years, at least 75 years for a brick and mortar. Cost, like I said, the cost up front is much higher. The construction time is 12 to 18 months, but staff recommendation is a traditional brick and mortar, but it's the board's discretion how they want to go about it. So, any question?
All right, questions. So the request for action is going to be to pick one of those options, and we've got Director Reed.
So I appreciate the fact that the last time we looked at this and there was a lot of private office spaces, and I read in the report that was then reduced to help the cost. And looking at this, it is a higher up cost front for brick and mortar, but if you look at the numbers, it's half a cost per year as opposed to a modular. So we're looking at $91,000 a year for brick and mortar over the life of it versus $120,000 for fabricated and $180,000 for modular. So I'm a fan of the brick and mortar.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Chair?
Director Samra?
Be with our director. I think brick and mortar is the best way to go. What's the point of having wobbly modular building or prefab? You know, I mean, prefab's okay, but modular, I'm directly not a fan. So I think overall, brick and mortar, I think it's the best way to go.
Okay. Director Pedroso.
Yeah, I at first I was looking at the modular one, but I think that knowing the brick and mortar, the big bad wolf can't blow it down, so I'll go with that one.
There you go. Anybody else? Yeah, I appreciate that staff went back and right-sized the facility. I thought that, you know, the other one, knowing that it all gets paid for by ratepayers, which are all of our constituents, and after looking at it, and if you take, you know, I have concern when you give me a price per square foot at $375 to $550. I think that's a pretty wide margin. I'd like to see that margin brought down a little bit. But when you just look at the top line numbers for each one, you're talking $1.6 million from the high end of a modular to the high end of a brick and mortar option at $1.6 million, but you're getting double the lifespan out of it. I think it makes sense. We make the investment now because back to the point I think that you were trying to make, you can go with the cheap option today in the modular, but if you're going to replace it at least minimally once in that 50-year lifespan and potentially twice, well, just split the difference there. If you had to replace it at year 25 and replace it at the end, if it's $4.7 million on the high end for it today, I imagine you'll be paying more than 6.3 for it to replace it 20 years down the road. So I think option one is the most expensive option, but the option that is we get the best bang for our buck on it.
And I will put a caveat. I started working on this in November, December. Cost, I mean, with everything going on in this world, I can't promise it's gonna come under $6.3 million.
No, I bet we have to have, but I think marginally, whether it's a modular or a brick and mortar, if costs are going to go up, they're going to go up for those items as well. And then the other thing that I would suggest is, as we get further into making a motion here, is what I don't want to see is at the end of the day, it is a landfill, and I want a safe, workable space for the employees that are there. But we don't need a building, you know, I'm going to use, for example, the retirement system just built a new building in downtown Merced. I don't need to see that type of building at the landfill. It needs to be a functional building, but I don't necessarily see that it has to be lots of frills and lots of decoration and all that stuff. It needs to be functional. We need to have a functional workspace for the folks that are working out there, but it doesn't need to be anything more than it needs to be, right? I think we want to, you know, have a welcome environment for our employees, all those good things, but we don't need no fancy out there. Director Pereira.
And so if the board today picks a direction, then you're going to go out and get bids.
So next month I'll be bringing back an item we need to finish the plans, and so that will be added. I don't know how much, like $70,000 extra to finish out the plans, and then we will put an item together after the board's discretion to put it out to bid. I will say there'll be another item before that we'll bring to the board for approval as well, which is be a construction management firm, and also look at a forensic architect engineering firm.
Okay, because I'll tell you, the last construction project we went out there was not so much pretty good. You know, the cost overruns and that is, you know, so I'm just really nervous that we're sitting here thinking we're going to get a building for, you know, somewhere between $4.5 and $6 million, and that's not going to be the case, and I don't want that to happen. So I just want to put it up front so everybody in the room knows that I'd like to have more scrutiny on this, and I think my colleagues would probably like more scrutiny. If we had a final report on the last construction project from what was proposed to us at this stage, and then where we ended up, I think some of my colleagues would be shocked. So I think, you know, I'm just nervous, to be honest with you. It's a lot of money.
It is, and that's why we're going to be going out to get a recommendation from Director Silvera, is get a forensic architect and engineering to look at the plans to make sure that there isn't anything missing. Obviously, they're not going to be 100%, but at least if they're 90% accurate, at least we know that. I mean,
That's not a good enough goal.
Yeah, I want.
well, I mean, architect engineer mean that firm that we had as a friend.
600,000 of mistakes. That's not enough. That's not good enough, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I think to Director Pereira's point, and that's something that I did suggest to NAV, is a forensic architect. And I've learned about this. I made up a name for him, called him a fiscal engineer, but then I found that there's an actual name that already exists called a forensic architect. And it is somebody that you bring on as you hire these engineers and these architects to design something, and then they give you your estimated costs. That person comes in, and yes, there is a fee associated with hiring them, but their job is to go correct the work that the engineers and the architects missed, because this is something that I will say over and over again. If this gavel cost me $1 in the bid, it cost me $3 in a change order. And it isn't that the gavel actually costs more. It's that all the bureaucracy, the 5 people that had to decide that we need to do a change order, and then the as-builts need to be changed, and the architect's got to take another crack at it, and it makes it cost more. So if you do the simple math, if I pay this person $100,000, if they save me $33.3 thousand in things that they corrected that went into the bid correctly, they've now paid their salary. So I think it's something important. It's something we need to do more in government, because I think that there are such great margins in jobs that governments do that it allows for those people to be sloppy. And then you get to the point where you're jaded, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in under bid, and you're saying to yourself, well, you're looking at them and going, yeah, they're going to change order us to death on this thing. So I think I like the approach, and I think the action today is to at least give staff the direction to move forward with, okay, we want a stick and brick building. Now your job is to go out and figure out what that's going to cost us, and then ultimately we still haven't decided whether we're going to go with that or not.
Correct. It'll be the board's discretion if whatever the cost is, and if you guys don't feel that it's reasonable cost, that's when we'll
And that being said, Nav, I also want to put out there is that we do know we need to do something. What we have is we're running out of useful life on it. So, okay.
And Director Pereira, I hear you loud and clear.
Very good. So with that,
I'll move to approve option 1.
so we have a motion by Director Amabil and a second by Director Kale to approve option 1. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously amongst the members that are here. All right. We have no discussion items. We're going to go to other reports. The Executive Director's report. Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to share that there's an upcoming free event with the Cotton Recycling Educational event at Bowles Farms. It's on April 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is featuring the guest speakers Sierra Spinning, and the opening speaker is Chair Silvera. If you're interested, I have a flyer here. Again, April 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Bowles Farm. It's the Cotton Recycling Educational event. Also, I emailed earlier today that the resource and recovery site or facility at the Highway 59 landfill is now open. We always appreciate if you want to help spread the word. There were some photos in the press release. If you're inclined to share that with your constituents through social media or your local community newsletters and whatnot. And then also just want to report out that a week and a half ago, I was in Sacramento with well, I guess it's Director Serrato, but in the capacity as Mayor Serrato, and Director Pedroso in the capacity of Supervisor Pedroso for a day about high-speed rail. Lots of really good meetings and just advocating and having the hard conversations around ensuring that Merced will remain in the initial operating segment of the project. So with that, I will conclude my remarks unless there's anything anyone would like me to address.
All right, thank you.
Anybody who took the over would like you to address more.
All right, we'll move on to director's reports. Director Pedroso, Director Pereira, Director McDaniel, Director Serrato.
Just I want to echo what Stacy said. I want to thank Josh, thanks Stacy, thank everybody else involved who I think we had a very good day in Sacramento, meeting with legislators, senators, assembly members, met with the governor's office as well. And
Over.
had a, shoot. Just, so I want to thank everybody for all their work.
Thank you. Director Amabile. Director Kale. Director Sammer. Director Ford. All right. Our regular meeting portion is not done. Just the part that you all get to participate in is done. So we are moving on to item 15, closed session items. The public will be provided an opportunity to comment on any matter to be considered in closed session prior to the board adjourning into closed session. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on any closed session items? Not seeing anyone, not getting any motion that there's anybody online. I will ask folks if they would please leave the room so that we could start our closed session, where closed session we had item A, 15A is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 2 cases, and then item B, Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority, the conference with real property negotiators, property APN 078-200-036, 078-190-005, 078-200-037, 078-200-090. Agency negotiators are Stacy, Nab, James. Negotiating parties, the Regional Waste Authority, Fernando Borba Jr., Patricia Borba, Albert D. Mangini, and Christine H. Mangini as co-trustees of the Mangini 1998 Trust. And then item B2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation. And you guys can all read the section codes.
Okay. Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the cameras are still on.
All right, welcome back to out of closed session, where we had 4 items that we discussed and staff was given direction. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:47 p.m. Thank you, everybody.